It's the Brandon Cruz Daily Fantasy Podcast, where I go and look at low plays and strategies specifically designed for GPPs. This is a show for people who are already informed on daily fantasy sports and how these contests operate. If you have any question related to NASCAR, it isn't a stupid question, feel free to shoot them away on Twitter, BrandonCruzDFS. Most importantly, take everything here with a grain of salt and use your best judgment making entries. Additionally, if you have a gambling addiction, that's just not my problem. Check your sense of feelings at the door. We're talking about Darlington this week, and I'm doing it a little differently because, frankly, I've hated the whole grading system this year. I'm just going to go back to how I normally do it. So if this video ends up being 40, 45 minutes, 50 minutes, I understand if you don't like that, but it's just easier for me to do that. And so you're going to be looking at me for most of it because I am going to be looking at a bunch of different tabs, and it's just easier for me to talk versus trying to just have it over here and just have the rankings up on the screen. If you do want to see the information that I'm looking at or the tools that I use, go to racewiththeprize.com. And speaking of that, since it's the beginning of the month, if you want to support me, my channel, whatever you feel like, you can support me on Patreon. Link is in the description below. It's the start of the month. I know NFL is back, but if you want to support me, if you still pay attention to NASCAR, if you still care about it, consider joining my Patreon or donating through PayPal. Either way, this video is more so what I normally do before I record the videos, because usually I do like about an hour and a half of research and then kind of sum it up in the rankings, but I end up getting questions in Discord, on Twitter, and it's just easier if I do it this way, because then I can't say like, oh, I didn't talk about this, or I forgot, so I don't have to continuously say the same thing over and over to people in Discord or Twitter or whatever. So entering this week, there's multiple things that I want to look at. I do want to pay attention to the playoff points, the end of the last race, because I wasn't exactly familiar with how the Darlington race ended. It just slipped my mind. So I just rewatched. I looked through it. I want to look at the previous Darlington races. I do want to look at other tracks that I think are going to be similar to how this race plays out in terms of temperature and just in terms of how the race is going to play out. So I do want to just take a gander at the point standings, because I feel like that's going to determine more of who do you not want to play or who do you want to watch out for. Because if you're at the very bottom of the playoff grid, okay, so Kevin Harvick should be good to go. He'll make it through the round of 16. I'm not too concerned about him. Reddick, I imagine you're going to see, really idiotic things out of the RCR group, either staying out to get stage points and maybe hurting themselves late in races just because they're trying to maximize their stage points as well. Same thing with Eric Almirola and Michael McDowell. Christopher Bell, not too concerned. He was running decent at the last Darlington race until he had to pit for a flat tire. Kurt Busch, I want to say Kurt Busch is not going to be that team isn't going to be doing too many crazy things just because he is 11th points right now. Obviously, he got wrecked at the last Darlington race, but that's not going to concern me at all. I'm not concerned about Keselowski, Logano, Byron, Hamlin. Everyone above that is just racing their own race. They know they're going to get through the playoffs, and so right now it's just McDowell, Almirola, and Reddick that I would be concerned about either doing dumb things, purposely getting stage points and sacrificing the end of the race, just things to keep up with there. So those would be the only guys there. When I was looking over the end of the last Darlington race, obviously I go back and I recall at the end, Larson was making it interesting. He was trying to catch up to Truex, and I was looking at their lap times, and you don't see that Larson is running faster lap times. On the final lap, Truex is faster, second to last, or 292. Truex is yet again faster. 291, Truex is faster. 290, Truex is still faster. And so when you start looking back, we have to almost go back almost 40 laps to look at the green flag pit stops on the final, segment, or the final pit stops in the race with about 40 laps to go. You had Kyle Larson almost gain 2.5 seconds on Truex. Kyle Larson's green flag pit sequence, so the in lap, in pit road, and the out lap was a minute 44.7, where Truex ran a minute 42.7, so maybe not necessarily 2 seconds, but you get the gist. Larson made up a ton of time on the final green flag pit stop, and we also saw the leaders start running to lap cars towards the end of that race. And so anytime Larson would either get up right on Truex or when he was, close enough to, make a pass or whatever, they would consistently hit lap traffic. And Truex just has the advantage because he's the first car to get through. And typically you would see that Larson would kept hitting the lappers, exiting the corners, and just hurting Larson's time because, on lap 31, or with 31 to go, you can see the delta change. Like 259, Larson is a second and a half back. 260, he's 1.93 seconds back. 261, he's 1.75 seconds back. 262, he's 1.25 seconds back. And that's just how these guys are catching the lappers. And so the finish of this race looks much closer than what it was. Like when you're looking at lap, 28, Truex is literally, or Larson is literally half a car length behind Truex. But yet again, the lapper of Brad Keselowski kills Larson on the exit there. And so just keep that in mind. It did end up looking a lot closer, but Truex had the much better car. Larson was able to contend, but this just turns into the one groove racetrack that Darlington always is. And we've seen that they've paved, specifically turn 2 is the one that I want to focus on because when Truex was asked about it earlier in the week, you saw or you heard Truex was just saying turn 2 is basically taken out of the equation because turn 2 was the handling corner. There's so many bumps. That's where we saw Cole Custer get turned. That's where we saw Eric Almirola get turned. Kurt got turned on the front straightaway by Bubba. But even in the last race, most of the accidents normally happen on the exit of turn 2 because you have so many bumps there, it kind of washes you up into the outside lane and possibly even into the wall. And so that's when you see guys either bounce off each other and spin to the inside wall or just make mistakes. Now that turn 2 is paved, even Truex was saying that basically takes that corner out of the equation. 3 and 4, you're always entering the way, like nothing's really changed depending on how old the track is because it's such a tight corner. Excuse me, it's a one groove anyway. Turn 1 and 2 was the only one that kind of required finesse and throttle, discipline. Now that that's taken out of the equation, I think this just helps this once again become more of a one groove type of racetrack. And so I just want to bring that out there. Obviously, we're 7 minutes. It's going to be a long video. I apologize. If you don't like this, it's easier for me. And so when I'm looking at Darlington, I'm obviously going to be looking at the starting grid because I do believe that we're going to see possibly either Chase Elliott or Denny Hamlin have an advantage right off the bat because Truex is starting 10th. I think Truex is going to show up with one of the better cars here. I think Larson is going to show up with one of the better cars, but these guys are in traffic. Darlington is a track that I am very hesitant on, looking at a Dominator coming from, 10th on back or even 8th on back because it's very easy for somebody to kind of walk away with the start of this race and the only way they get past is on pit road. Like I don't see, certainly maybe on the first restart or at the very beginning of the race, but I don't see the leader really getting past at any point under green in this race. I think it's all going to be on pit road, and so I think that kind of bumps up. You got Ryan Blaney starting first, you got Hamlin starting second, Kurt Busch and Chase Elliott starting third and fourth. When we're looking at the cars who have been fast at this track before, obviously we've seen Chase Elliott run fast. He's coming out of the Hendrick stable, and Larson too. And so right off the top of my head, I'm thinking that Elliott or Larson is going to, easily get into the top 3. And the only contender that I think they really have to worry about is Denny Hamlin. I don't see Blaney staying up there all day. When you look at Blaney's last couple of finishes at Darlington, it's 8th, 24th, 21st, 16th, 13th, 15th. And when we look at the tracks that I want to compare to, I normally look at race rating more. So if I refer to, first best driver or second best driver, it's more so the rating rank just because I think that shows what a car is doing and what a team is doing more than the finishing position. And so, at Michigan, for example, I know this is just an example, not necessarily pertaining to Darlington, but Ryan Blaney had the 5th best race rating. So I just want to say he was the 5th best car. He ended up winning the race because, everything happened late in the race. So looking at the tracks that I want to look at, specifically Atlanta, even Nashville to an extent, and Darlington again, those would be probably the 3 that I want to focus on. And so when we look at Atlanta, Ryan Blaney had the 6th best car there. Denny Hamlin had the 7th best. Kurt Busch ended up having the best just because he was able to stay out in front all day. He was able to basically lead the entire race, and I don't know, like, because we don't see that really replicate anywhere else. Because when we look at his other race ratings here, even going back to the first Atlanta race, it was 19th for Kurt Busch. It was 13th at Kansas, 12th at Dover, 31st at Charlotte. Even the Pocono races, 7th and 16th. And so, if anything, that Kurt Busch kind of run was more of an anomaly because there wasn't a whole lot of data supporting it. He hasn't really backed it up since then. Even when we haven't really gone to a mile and a half or an intermediate track since then. But the closest thing was Michigan when he had 6 bets. Like, I don't see much from Kurt Busch, although he did have the best race. He had the best car at Atlanta. Looking at the guys who have been consistent this entire year, Alex Bowman had the 3rd fastest car. I think that's important because we're going to see, I think the Hendrick cars are going to show up. Like, it's going to be Hendrick or Joe Gibbs in this race. And so Alex Bowman had the 3rd best at Atlanta. When we're looking at the 4th best, it's Tyler Reddick. And Tyler Reddick was more consistent than Kurt Busch, and so I think that can be replicated, or at least Tyler Reddick can end up being probably the 7th best car. It's a shame he's starting 7th at this race here. Kyle Busch, 2nd best at Atlanta. I firmly believe he did have the best car, and I think if you look at more of the lap times versus just the laps led that Kurt Busch had, I think Kyle Busch probably performed better if you take that out of the race rating. But Kyle Busch is looking like a great play. Truex as well. Larson, I'm a bit hesitant on. Like, for me, entering this race, it seems like it's either going to be Larson or Truex dominating. I would lean more towards Truex just because he's been more consistent at this racetrack, and they're probably going to be bringing back the same setup that they brought initially to the Darlington race this year, where he just kind of walked away with it. And so I don't think the argument is necessarily between Larson and Truex. I think it's more so Truex and Kyle Busch. Part of me really believes that Kyle Busch is going to have a better car than Kyle Larson, and that Truex is going to have a better car than Kyle Larson. Same thing with Hamlin. And so I'm almost putting Larson as maybe my 4th biggest interest here. I'm leaning more towards the Joe Gibbs cars of Truex and Kyle Busch, just based on consistency, week in and week out. And maybe that's a bit biased, because recently, 9th best at Atlanta for Kyle Larson, 3rd best at Darlington earlier in the year, 1st best at Atlanta earlier this year. When you compare those tracks with Truex Jr. and Kyle Busch, it would be Truex had the 5th best at Atlanta, Kyle had the 2nd best. And at Darlington this year, yet again, Larson 3rd, Truex 1st, and Kyle Busch 5th. Like, that's pointing more towards, unless Larson gets out and leads, which I don't think, if nobody knows who's really going to walk away with this race and who's going to dominate. But I would honestly lean more towards Truex and Kyle Busch, because I think they can get there on place differential. And as long as Larson is not the fastest car off the truck, and when the track transitions to the night portion of the race, I think I would much rather focus on Chase Elliott, who I think can perform very similar to Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin. And so it seems to me like Larson might be the 4th interest for me here. Now, does that necessarily hurt your line right now? I don't think so. Because if Larson leads and you don't have him, you're going to lose anyway. The Truex and Kyle Busch, they're going to make their way through the field probably towards the end of the first stage. We'll probably see Truex probably around 5th, probably see Kyle Busch around 7th. And if that's the case, I think the top 4 drivers are going to be competing for the lead. And so maybe that leaves Larson running 5th, 4th, even 3rd for the first portion of the race, probably the first stage, and so I think that just leans more towards a Truex or a Kyle Busch lineup being optimal this week. And so that's kind of how I'm determining that, maybe I want to pump the brakes on Larson, or maybe I want to be, under the field on them. Because I think Busch can easily get 9 or 10 place differential points. I think Truex can easily get 9 or 10. And if Larson just kind of gets stuck running 4th, and Truex is running 5th, and Kyle's running 8th, obviously those guys are outperforming them. When we look at that's what I want to look at. When we look at optimals, this previous time around, at Darlington this year, it was Truex because obviously he ran away with the race. Kyle Busch started 3rd, finished 3rd, ended up with 50.9 points, ran fast laps in that. In the race, Ryan Blaney at $9,000 started 16th, finished 8th. Newman started 20th, finished 10th. A bit of an outlier. Like I said, you had Bell pitting late in the race. You had a couple other guys run into issues on the final run that gave Newman a finish that he wasn't deserving. Because let's see where Newman's race rating was for that. Because I don't believe that Newman ran that well. Because he finished 10th. Normally he'd be finishing around the top 15, and so that was kind of a peak for Newman. And so when we look at Darlington, Newman had a 15th race rating, finished 10th, finished better than where he should have finished. And so, and you need that when you're looking at optimal lineups and when you're looking to build line, you need guys that are going to outperform what they should do. So Newman outperformed what he should do. You had Chase Briscoe start 22nd, finish 11th, outperformed what he should have done at this point in the season. And then Chris Buescher at 6,500 start 11th, finish 9th. And so you had one 10K guy, two 9K guys, one 7K and two 6Ks for $49,600 as the salary for that. And so when we're looking at this race, going back to why I'm kind of leaning more towards Truex and Kyle, I think they can get there on fast laps and place differential alone. And we could even look at the previous Dominator points at this race. Excuse me. And so when you look at, I'm going to sneeze. Sorry about that. When you look at Kyle Larson this year, he only got 6 Dominator points this time around. Obviously, when you look back at Darlington 2016, 2017, Larson has 57, 109, and 31. But, Larson, despite how close he was to Truex at the end, didn't have the fast laps. Truex had 93 this last race, 94 in the fall last year, 10 in the spring last year, 7 in 2019, 12 in 2018, 18 in 2017, and 42 in 2016. You had Harvick with 7 this last time around. Hamlin with 8, despite the fact that Hamlin pretty much never had the lead. That's all fast laps coming from Hamlin right there. Chase Elliott, 2, a little concerning, but when you look back at his last 2 races in the Southern 500, when the temperature is cooler, when it's not, completely a day race, 50 and 14 50 and 14 for Hamlin. Kyle Busch, 11, 8, 2, 3, 51. Was 51s from 2018, but Kyle Busch consistently getting fast laps throughout these races. Brad Keselowski as well. I think he had more of an outlier, more of an anomaly. I know it's 15 this last time around, but 2, 4, 33, 12, 15, 7 his last 7 races. I don't think we're going to see Keselowski really replicate that. Let's see, who else is? Blaney, 3, 4, 3, his last 3 races here. Bit concerning, but he does have that track position if he can get out there early. So yeah, right now, I'm just seeing things more pointing towards Kyle Busch or Truex. As we get further along in this race, or as we get further along in the field, I need to do it on the side. If we're building with one of those guys in mind, if I can get this to load over here. My initial takeaway was that if you're wanting to play even Larson or Truex together in a line, you're going to be punting in this race. And DraftKings has made it really difficult to punt this week. Oddly enough, Quinn Houff has gone from 4,500 to 5,400. But Balicki's the first guy that you could probably punt with, starting 38th. Probably going to lose your 4, 5, probably even 6 positions. Can't do it there. Haley, probably not going to hold on to that 20th position. If he was going to do that, even if he holds on like a 24th, I don't see it happening. BJ McLeod, I don't see it happening. Joey Gaze, I don't think he's going to be passing enough people to get there. We saw the Rick Ware cars have issue at this track for whatever reason. It seems like these higher wear racetracks just give the Rick Ware guys more trouble than what they normally get. And so I don't think you're going to be punting at the bottom of the range this week. And so who's your real first guy that you can start punting with? It's going to be, sort this again. I think it's going to be Corey LaJoy. I really do at 25th, $5,500, just holding on to a 25th, maybe getting a few positions. Newman worries me. I think Newman's going to be the chalk. And he worries me because when we look at I know we kind of talked about, he normally finishes 18th, but when you look at the tracks recently, like Newman has been horrible. He's been doing good at finishing better than how he should have, like at Indy and Nashville earlier this year. But I mean, the 6 car has been absolutely horrible. 23rd best car at New Hampshire, 23rd at Atlanta, Pocono, 24th, 32nd, Nashville, 19th. Okay, that's kind of what we need at this racetrack. Charlotte, 20th. Probably would have finished 15th, but blew a tire there. We already know. Dover, 26th. Darlington was the only race this year going back, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Going back 15 races. I just had a race rating inside the top 15. And I'm worried about Newman. There's real worry, especially if he's chalk. I don't want to fade Newman just because he's chalk, but there's a part of me that thinks that Newman finishes 19th or that he finishes 22nd, and it might be worth playing Corey LaJoy, who can get you maybe 3 or 4 positions, because LaJoy at least showed that he can finish, 22nd earlier this year when they came to this racetrack. And he had a race rating of, that's Haley. Oops. He had a race rating of 24th, like bare minimum. LaJoy, I think LaJoy gains 2 or 3 positions here, and we've seen this car slowly get better and better this year. Like I don't mind LaJoy starting 25th. When we move on over to Anthony Alfredo worries me as well. If Alfredo can replicate his 26th place finish, then maybe it's going to be head-to-head with him and LaJoy. I'm just really, really concerned with Newman. I'd actually much rather play Bubba Wallace. Not as consistent, more expensive than Ryan Newman, but if he's running anywhere close to what Joe Gibbs is running, he might be able to maintain that 17th and even move forward. And so if we look at how Bubba's been running this year at these recent racetracks that I want to look at, we have seen improvement. And so Atlanta's 16th, that's what you want to see. Pocono had more speed, not necessarily a 1-to-1 ratio of Darlington, but it's good to see that Bubba has shown speed in the past. Nashville 24th, not the best. Charlotte 13th best car. I'd like seeing that. Darlington this year 21st. However, I do believe he had a slight front end damage from when he got into Kurt Busch on lap 108. Man, it's going to be interesting because we're going to see a lot of ownership between Joy, Newman, Alfredo, and Bubba Wallace. Eric Jones, and even Eric Jones too. We did see him run 18th this last time around. He's starting 22nd here. Do we see, I wish I had his ownership this last time around, but do we see Erik Jones pull the ownership that he did last time? Because everybody saw his first, eighth, fourth, and fourth, or fifth and fourth place finishes. Do we see, man, do we, and it's another thing too, because he was the sixth highest, he's been incredibly impressive DFS wise. 10th, 5th, 3rd, and 6th on the DFS highest scoring guys the last 4 races. That's including the 18th place finish here. I'm pretty sure he started in the back. Let's see. Oh boy. X out that. Let's see. Where did Jones start? He started 26th and drove his way up to 18th. And so that's why I don't necessarily like looking at previous DraftKings points, is because Erik Jones is that car is an 18th to 22nd place car this year. He scored the 6th highest amount of DraftKings points this last race because he started 26th. He gained all those positions. He doesn't have those positions to gain this time around. He started in 22nd, starting around where he should. And so if Jones finishes, 19th, 18th, 20th, again, he's not going to provide you that value that he did this last time. He's not going to be that top 10 performer in DFS. And so I think there's a case to be made to not focus on Jones and to go to Bubba or LaJoy or Newman. All right, let's see. Who else are we looking at in the price ranges here? Cole Custer starting 31st, Daniel Suarez 26th. I like both those guys. Same thing with Chastain. If you remember, Chastain stayed out and he led a bunch of laps, got caught a lap down late in the race. Let me look. Because let me see if I can find when he did that. And so I believe Chastain was a value play this previous race, and he stays out. He doesn't pit. So they go green on lap 29. The stage ends lap 91. Chastain ends up staying out under green. He takes the lead and then slowly gets past, and he ends up being lapped at the very end of this. And he ends up being trapped a lap down because of it, and then he ends up going 2 laps down late in the race. So Chastain under this, and he had a fast car too. He wasn't driving terrible. He drives up to 12th under green, probably up to 10th. So Chastain actually drives up to 10th in that green flag run. Everybody starts to pit. As I said, he ends up cycling to the lead. He ends up leading 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He leads 10 laps and then just drops like a rock because everybody on new tires are catching up. And so do they try that again because they're assuming that you don't lose as much speed now because they repaved the corners? I would argue that you're still going to lose a ton of speed, especially on the straightaways, just because you don't have as much grip on the straightaways. That's a worn-out racetrack, especially when you're on the gas. You can't just put the grip down that you would do if they repaved the entire track. And so I don't think Chastain necessarily stays out and, goes the lap down here. But I think Chastain has a real fast car. When we look at his race rating from the previous Darlington race, I'm sure it's going to be a bit harsh on him because he was trapped a lap down, but I'm curious what it is here. It was 14th. Yeah, so I think Chastain is a fantastic play. You don't necessarily have the worries that you get from Suarez because Suarez has been off and on this entire year. More... Not as consistent as you would like in the 7K range. Cole Custer is much cheaper, but I'm worried about Cole Custer. I'm probably leaning more towards Chastain in the 7K range, and I think more people would if he didn't end up going that lap down. I think people forget that he had a fast car. They just made it wasn't even a terrible play because if he stays in the lead lap, he has extra tires late in this race, and I think he can contend for a top 15 finish. He just ends up, like I said, he ends up going falling 19th, getting lapped, and that pretty much put a nail in Chastain's coffin that day. But I think Chastain's a good play. this week. When we look at, let's see, what are we at? Right now we're like an 8K range. Let's see, where's Bell starting? So Bell, as I said, he blew a tire, or he had a pit late at the Darlington race earlier this year. He pitted with 4 to go. Where was he running here? Where you at, Bell? So this is another one of those cases where Bell kind of pulled an Alex Bowman, because Bell, during that same sequence of the leaders pitting with about 4 to go, he gains a position on pit road, and he ends up cycling from 8th to 5th under green. He's running 5th, and he hits the wall with 4 to go. When he's running 5th, he ends up finishing 14th. Last car, 2 laps down. Only 9 cars finished on lead lap in this race, because it's a very green race. It's a very one-groove racetrack, so guys are just going to be clicking off lap times. But Bell should have finished 5th here. And I think if we see Bell finishing 5th, I think he has a slightly higher price tag. And so, I think Bell's underpriced. I think Bell has high upside. I think Chastain's underpriced. I think he has high upside. And so I would actually argue, at least right now, I haven't finished the projections, but right now I would look towards using Bell and Chastain in a lineup, and then focusing either on Truex or Kyle Busch, or maybe both those guys, depending on how ugly the punt range would be if I actually did that. But if you work Bell and Chastain in your lines, that's 84,000 on average. If you throw in Kyle Busch or Truex, that's like 7,500. You can easily do that. I don't mind that at all. Even if you go Kyle Busch and Truex, you're left with 5,800. That's not bad at all. Like, I love the idea of using Bell and Chastain as plays. Not even necessarily, one-offs. I like them a lot, using them together. So let me just if I can get my my sheet to work over here. So we got Bell, I got Chastain. What are we at on time right now? Well, half an hour. That's not too bad. A little bit long-winded, but hopefully it's kind of helping you out a little. Yet again, I can't really show the screen because this is Pierce's stuff. But it's great to make content with. It's easy to read. I absolutely love this. And so when we're moving up, it really seems like it's Kyle Busch, Truex, even Hamlin for me, and then Larson. So Larson might be my least owned guy, potential Dominator wise, and I haven't listed anybody else. I don't know, but Larson might end up having more ownership than he should, and I would actually rather be on Truex and Kyle Busch here. I think Truex probably have the most ownership. I think it then goes to Larson and then Kyle. Whereas I think you should probably have it, or you should have your interest or ownership probably Truex, Kyle, and then Larson. Man, there's a chance that Larson struggles in this race. Not even like doesn't perform, but just gets outscored. The only way I see Larson killing this race is if he gets out into the lead and can hold it. But man, it's really, really close between Kyle Busch and Truex Jr. to outrun Kyle Larson. Let's see. Let me move this over here. And so, move this back. Let me know if you like this, because this is how I used to do a lot of my videos until people didn't like how I did it. And so, if you want to turn back the screen, I guess we can go back to the rankings now, because I've kind of yammered on for a bit. And I've done more research before, but I just prefer this type of discussion more. And so let's go ahead and start ranking these guys here. Blaney, concerned. I don't know if he could hold on. The only way I see Blaney killing it this week is if he just stays out in front. And I'm worried about that. I really am. I think he falls to like 4th during this race and gets hurt by other people. I like Hamlin. I think Hamlin can go out there and lead. I like the Joe Gibbs guys a lot. I like Joe Gibbs and the cheaper Hendrick Motorsports guys. Larson is just a difficult guy to get to right now. I don't think Kurt Busch works. I have slight interest to Elliott. I would actually prefer Bowman more. And let's see. Let me just go back to the. Let's look at 2021 Dominator points here. So between Chase Elliott getting an average of 8, and when we look at the tracks I kind of care about, so 6 at Atlanta, 5 at Nashville, 27 at Dover this year. Compare that to Bowman. 1 at Darlington this year, 0 at Nashville, 7 at Atlanta. I actually need to probably switch those guys. I'd be more interested in Elliott based on those track types. As I said, I'm concerned about Larson. Let's see, as we get to Reddick, I'm concerned that Reddick's going to end up doing something dumb. Just because he's at the bottom, back against the wall. Really same deal as last week, to where they got to perform, they got to try and win to get through the next round of the playoffs, and so I'm gonna sneeze again. Hold on, sorry. Apologize for that. I'm concerned about Reddick doing something stupid, and I think Reddick finishes around 10th or 11th. That's not going to do much when he loses those positions. I'd actually rather go to Eric Almirola if I have to choose one of these guys. Concerned about Eric Almirola. Not for performing poorly isn't the word I want to use. Eric Almirola's main defactor is how he performs against the 6K guys. Because if the 6K guys don't perform, well, then it kind of defaults to Eric Almirola. But 7K is a rough situation because you have, I believe you have Suarez in that as well. So you got Suarez at 73, starting 26. Suarez can easily outscore Eric. What the fuck am I even talking about? I'm not playing Eric Almirola. Not because of what he can do, but there's more avenues where he gets outscored than he doesn't. He needs a lot of things to go his way. Harvick, going to be a C for me. Not going to be a priority, but if I end up on him, I'm fine with that. I already told you I like, not too big on Logano. So, Logano, I don't think Logano's going to be owned at all. I think he gets forgotten about in the 10K range, but God, dude, it just... When we look at the 11K range, it's so... In order for Logano and Byron to do well, you need... Not only you need Elliott to do poorly, you need Larson to do poorly, you need Hamlin to do poorly, you then need Truex and Kyle Busch to do poorly, whereas I probably won't... I need to keep Logano and Byron in there, but if I'm building lineups with those guys, it's because I'm going out of my way to get to them. I already told you I love Christopher Bell. I think he's a great play. Concerned about Michael McDowell. I think he performs the worst the 6K guys. Keselowski, probably going to be a no for me as well. I don't think they have it. I don't think I'm going to go to Keselowski. Bubba, he's in the pool right now. I got to consider him. I'm not going to consider Priest. I think Priest finishes outside the top 20. Newman, got to consider. More concerned about Newman than Bubba, but if he's easier to get into lineups. Justin Haley, not going to do it. Man, Austin Dillon. Going to keep him in there, but I think he'll be difficult to get to. Jones, probably a no for me. Briscoe. He gets me 9. What is that? Like a 15th. That'd be like 38 points, 37 points. 36 points. What's that? That's 5.8, 5.9 value. We're gonna keep Briscoe in there. LaJoy I'm gonna keep in there as well. Suarez. I'm honestly concerned about Suarez. McLeod not gonna do it. Blicky not gonna do it. Stenhouse. I guess I really didn't talk about Stenhouse. I'm gonna keep him in full. I can't really answer that till I make my projections right now. Benedetto is probably gonna finish around 20th. If everything goes. Let's look at his race ratings real quick. Atlanta 12th. Nashville 22nd. Charlotte 21st. Darlington 18th earlier in the year. Atlanta 1 9th. Benedetto is a coin flip. I'm going to leave him as a B right now. I'll know more when I finish the projections later. I would lean more towards Benedetto finishing 21st than finishing 15th. He's going to be difficult to get to on price, too. Like, you got to go out of your way to get Stenhouse, Benedetto in your lineups, whereas Cole Custer kind of fits in there much easier. Where was Cole Custer running when he got wrecked? Let me look at that. Where you at, Cole? So, let's see. He got wrecked running 27th. And Cole struggled at, I think he struggled at Michigan, too. Sutton is still missed with Stewart Haas. They shouldn't be that poor, man. They should not be running that poor. I'm going to leave Cole Custer as a D. Anthony Alfredo. I don't think Alfredo works. Don't think Ware works. Busher. Maybe. Don't think so. I don't think he has a career day like he did this last time when he finished 9th. Don't see Joey Gaze. Don't see James working. And Quinn is too expensive. That's gonna do it for me. I think that really sums up the way I want to go. I like Kyle Busch. I like Truex more than I like Larson at the moment. I really like Chastain. I really like Christopher Bell. And so probably three of those 4 guys are probably going to be. I'll probably try and be building lineups around those guys. That's what I would do. And so if you like this, if this helps you out, consider donating. Consider join the Patreon. If you like this, let me know below. If you don't like this, well, at least let me know below. Be like, this took way too long. You're yapping too much. I got to worry about college football. I got to worry about my NFL draft. So I understand. But this is easier for me. Then I don't have to do this and then record a 20-minute video and then upload. Like I can just do it all in pretty much one sitting. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and we'll see you next time. Live show. Probably gonna do a live show, but I got to keep you updated because with the doubleheader this weekend, I got to see what Jordan wants to do with relating to time. But that's the plan right now. Thanks for watching.